Tom Dearden pulls off the try-saving tackle of the century. South Sydney posts its first win of 2024. Lachie Galvin and the West Tigers go back-to-back. And what do we do about this obstruction rule? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Ram Trucks as we welcome in the Queensland coach, league legend and commentator on Nine's Wide World of Sports to review a big Easter long weekend of rugby league. Hello, Billy.
Hello, Mark. It's been a great weekend of rugby league. There's plenty to get through, plenty of discussion points. But I just love the fact that we had an 18-year-old rookie yesterday, Lachlan Galvin, be the man of the moment to win a game for the Tigers. But we've also had a veteran in Adam Reynolds win the game for the Brisbane Broncos. So it's not just a game for all shapes and sizes, it's a game for all ages as well.
And so is this podcast when you have a look at us side by side. Billy, honesty test before we start. How many chocky Easter eggs did you tuck into over the weekend?
I'm not done yet. Easter goes for a lot longer than the weekend for me. I've been a little bit conservative, actually. I think I got through a whole bunny on the Sunday footy show on Sunday. But yeah, I've got a few kids in the house at the moment, so I'm on a mission to steal some of their Easter eggs.
How good's retirement? How good is retirement? Well, let's get into it, mate. I thought we'd start off with a Queenslander, given I'm talking to the Queensland coach, Tommy Dearden, the try-saving tackle on Selwyn Cobbo on Friday night. Wow.
It was a beauty, wasn't it? And it makes you think of other try-saving tackles throughout the NRL era, and Scott Sattler's comes to mind. That was an absolute beauty. To be honest, I think this one is actually a better tackle. It's a better moment, but it's just not put in the same event. Obviously, Scott Sattler was a huge moment in a huge game, changed the game as well. But Tommy did, and the effort that he put in early, before he even knew he was going to get to Selwyn Cobbo, that's the habit that he's got in his game, and that's one of the big reasons why Todd Payten has made him co-captain up there at the Cowboys, is because he puts in that sort of effort, and that's the standard of his game that becomes infectious throughout his whole team. And then to execute the tackle on a big man right at the end there, that was one of the best try-saving tackles I've seen.
Unbelievable. I'm just thinking, Billy, are you watching the likes of Tom Dearden and Ezra Mam in your role as Queensland coach? And can you shed any light on Cam Munster at the moment? Are we going to see him back anytime soon?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of my role as coach in these early rounds, is to make sure that I'm watching all these Queensland players. You don't know what's going to happen around the corner. We've already been dealt some blows with injuries. Big Tino, Jai Arrow's out at the minute. Tom Gilbert's out for the season also. So, you don't know what you're going to be dealt in 8 weeks' time. So it's really important that you've got a group of Queenslanders that you are watching. And to be honest, I watch all Queenslanders. Every single Queenslander that plays, I make sure that I do my job and watch their performance and watch the habits that they've got in their game. And, we had 34 players in February get to Brisbane for a preseason camp. We're only in there for 24 hours, but it was great to touch base with all those players. And over the last couple of years, we've needed a lot more than 17. So, if you're a Queenslander and you're playing in the NRL, your performances are monitored pretty closely.
Is it true that Cam Munster's wife has sealed shut the shower in relation to this groin injury? I mean, what's the story? I mean, there's a big secrecy around the groin and when he might return. Are you hearing anything from Cam? I mean, is he a week away, 2 weeks away? Or
I believe he's been training over the last couple of weeks. I was at Melbourne training last week, and he actually trained really well. Look, the injury that he's got is not just a performance-based injury. It's not like it's hampering him from doing anything at training. It's how he pulls up more so. And I think he's been getting through a bit of training. They've had a bit of time off over the weekend, given that they had the bye. They did train yesterday, so it'd be interesting how he pulled up today. And I'm sure Craig Bellamy would give him all the way up until 4:00 this afternoon when the teams are announced. So if he's announced this afternoon, I dare say that he's pulled up in reasonable condition and that he would be a good chance to take the field on Thursday night against the Broncos. But I do know Melbourne. I know their medical staff, they won't be rushing him. He is such an important part of that Melbourne Storm team that if he needs another week, they'll give him another week. But I think this is going to be an ongoing monitored situation throughout the season. We might even see Cam Munster play a few games and then have a week off. So I'm not exactly sure how they're approaching it, but that's the feel that I get with him. So I think for the good of the game, the good of Melbourne, and for the good of Cameron Munster, and probably his wife, we want to see him out on the field as soon as we can.
Absolutely, and fair enough too. We go to the Easter Monday thriller. Lachie Galvin, haven't they unearthed a terrific young player at the tender age of 18 years of age? He's got a great mentor in Benji Marshall, who's brought the best out in this West Tigers team, and they've gone back-to-back. There's plenty of excitement around the Tigers, and rightfully so, Billy.
Well, I try and hold myself back from saying the word kid, but he is still a kid. He was at school last year, and now he's the star of the show in a big Easter Monday clash, a battle between Parramatta and West Tigers, which is always a good clash, and he stood up in the moment of the match, 78th minute. The game was on the line. His team's 4 points behind, and he took it upon himself to grab the moment, and he took the line on. I think he beat one of his school teammates in Blaze Taulungi, who's looks like he's got a big future in front of him as well. But he owned that moment, put Dream Buller over to put the Tigers in front. And what a game it was. It was an incredible game to watch. I was watching this game and thinking, our code is in a really good spot. These are two teams. The Parramatta Eels have had a little bit of success over the last couple of years, but the Tigers have had none. And they're two teams that were exciting. I really liked the style of football they were playing. And, well done to the Tigers, well done to Benji Marshall, and well done to Lachlan Galvin, who owned that moment, and he'll remember that for the rest of his life. And
the fans are voting with their feet, Billy. We created a record over the course of the weekend. Over 200,000 people through the gates at NRL matches, which is a new record in the NRL, so well done to each and every one of the fans.
Crowds are great at the moment. I just want to, just on Benji Marshall, like the last couple of weeks has been outstanding. His efforts and what he's done for this club, like it's remarkable. This club was really struggling before Benji came on. He was the assistant last year under Tim Sheens. And to think only 2 weeks ago, or even 3 weeks ago, before a game was even played, there were some people questioning his work ethic.
Yeah.
Like, can you believe that? Some people were questioning Benji Marshall's work ethic as a coach. And I don't believe it came from any past coaches. I don't believe it came from anyone that's actually sat in a coach's seat. So, I don't know. Surely, like, there should be some accountability from some criticism that wasn't even warranted. Like, I just think, for us to just push past that and now let's just applaud Benji is that where our game's at? Like, there needs to be some sort of accountability for the people who want to throw those accusations out without any runs on the board. And now look at Benji.
Yeah.
Like he's done a great job. Like, they're playing a great brand of football. And, he's brought in a young fella who's really stood up. He's believed in him, and he's helped him along with his career. So I'm really happy for Benji. I certainly never doubted him. He's got a great football brain. I think he's a great Tiger, which holds a lot of substance when you're trying to bring a club up. He's been there. He's been through that building a long time. So, yeah, good on Benji.
Yeah, it's a great point. And even Benji said, when those people were criticising his work ethic, he stood there at a press conference and said, I shouldn't have to justify the way I coach a team, but if I turn my phone off between 6 and 8 o'clock at night because I want to spend some time with my family, that's my choice. And how can anyone begrudge a bloke that, Billy? Spending time with his family. I mean, he's always thinking about his job coaching the West Tigers football team, but he's got a young family and he's entitled to that team with them. So well said to you, Billy Slater. Now, just on Lachie Galvin, this sort of delves into a question about the hip drop tackle, because he is facing a couple of weeks out of the game. And I know you've got some thoughts on hip drop tackles involving some of the younger players in the game. What did you want to say about that, Bill?
Well, poor guy. He's going to sit on the sidelines for 2 weeks for a hip drop. And it was, to the letter of the law, that's exactly what that action deserved, because that's the history of the hip drop. It was a classic hip drop. Now, Max Plath for the Dolphins committed pretty much the same tackle. What I do want to sort of dive into is there something we can do for these inexperienced players coming into our game? So the penalties there to try and help the players not do it again, or try and there's a consequence involved in performing that action on the field. For some of the inexperienced players, they're just coming into first grade. They're still learning a whole heap. Their coaches would be sitting down with them every week trying to educate them on all different parts of the game. I just think there might be an opportunity for us not to have Lachlan, Galvin and Max Plath sit on the sidelines for half a month or 3/4 of a month because of something that they're still learning. If it's a 5-6 season player, fair enough. You know the rules. You've been in there. You've got your muscle memory intact. But Lachlan Galvin's played. He's played 3 games. Max Plath played 5 games. Even Kurt Morin, who got done for a lifting tackle on the weekend, he's played 19 games. He played less than a season. So I'm not sure. Like I get the fact that everyone needs to have the same penalties. I can see that line of thinking, but I just think for these really inexperienced players, we don't need them to be sitting on the sideline for them to understand, hey, don't do that again. Yeah. I even think the 10 in the bin, you can see the disappointment on both those young boys' faces when they went for 10 in the bin. They were really disappointed and embarrassed with themselves. Yeah, I think that's probably nearly enough for those young guys.
I totally see where you're coming from, Bill. It's sort of arguing for leniency for a player who hasn't got the experience of like a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year veteran in an NRL club. And you're probably right when you say, well, what's that doing for their development, sitting them on the sidelines for 2 weeks when they can learn from their mistake? We all saw the disappointment on their faces, yet they're out there and they know how to correct the mistake that they've made in the first place. It's not a bad point.
Yeah, I think the acceptance of the rule, like they were the only 3 players that drew suspensions from this weekend's games. There was a few players that got a fine, but they were the only 3 players that committed an action that drew a suspension, a week off, and they were all young players. So everyone else is abiding by the rules. Like everyone else is moving with the adjudication of the rules and the way that they're policing things. Like the hip drop wasn't a thing 3 years ago, whereas now it's a huge thing. But everyone's learning. But it's taken them time. I just think these young guys that have come into first grade. Lachlan Galvin was at school last year. He wasn't sitting in meeting rooms learning about hip drops. He was doing his HSC or whatever they do. Like I didn't go that far in school, so. But I just think that there needs to be some sort of lenient education. Now, he might go into the NRL and sit down and learn more about that part of the game. I just think the penalties are there to stop players doing it again, and I just don't think we need young players sitting on the sidelines for long periods of time to help them do that.
Well, you've given the NRL something to think about, and you've certainly created a debate for some of the various shows coming up this weekend, like the footy show and even the continuous call team. It's a really good debating point. The other really good talking point at the moment, Billy, is the obstruction rule. Now, some people understand it, others don't. Some say there should be common sense, others say it should be black and white. Where do you stand on obstruction as it stands right now?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because everyone wants, okay, if this happens or the pass goes behind here, this guy, like everyone wants black and white, but then black and white, then some are let go because it doesn't affect the play, and you're like, well, that was the same as before, but it never. I think the referee needs some sort of
discretion.
He needs to have some sort of opinion in this matter. He needs to probably have a past player. I think Andrew Johns brought up the point on the Sunday Football Show about having a past player in there to go, well, that guy was never going to get to that play, and that play was never going to the outcome of that play was never going to change if he didn't get obstructed. Now, the one on, I think, was it Thursday night with the Panthers,
yes,
where Jared Woodea Hargraves actually got through the line, and then Dylan Edwards was coming through at the back as a fullback, he had to go around the referee, which obstructed his view to Jared, and then they collided. Now, Joey Manu scored an incredible try, which I didn't think actually. I don't know if Dylan Edwards was actually going to get there. Maybe he was, but I think in that situation, that's not your classic stop in the line obstruction. So I just think the referee needs to have some sort of say in this and have some sort of feel. Like I like the way the referees are refereeing it at the moment. They're limiting penalties, which is limiting the stop-start in the game. You know, for 10 metres, if they're leaving early, get them back 11 or 12 metres. You start to get that feel of the game, and you can manage the game rather than just police every little thing that you see, because, you know, if you want to do that, you'll nearly get a penalty in every tackle. You'll find something, a hand on the ball or something like that. But if you can manage the players and manage the game, the fatigue will take over, and that will create the space, and then the best team will win the game. So I think they're doing a really good job, but this is just an area that's just creeping up on us, and we're just starting to get a few situations in the game that we're debating about.
Well, Adam G sort of set the tone, didn't he, in the grand final last year, that two teams go at it. We had probably one of the best games we've seen in a long, long time, and I think that's obviously filtered down to the referees. You know what, if we need to take them back 12 metres, do it.
When you've got referees with signs in the crowd, you know you're doing something right. And Adam G started to have signs in the crowd and that sort of stuff. So, no, they're doing a great job. It's a really tough occupation. It's a tough situation. You can't win because if you get your job done right, that you're doing your job. If you don't, it's your fault. It's like a goalkeeper in soccer. You know, you let a goal in, it's your fault. If you don't let a goal in, well, you're doing your job. So it's a really tough situation. You can't go out there and score a try and make up for it. So I think they're doing a good job all in all.
Yeah, well said. On to the fullbacks in the game. I wanted to pinpoint a couple of them, given I'm talking to one of the great fullbacks of the past. Dylan Edwards for the Panthers and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. We saw Roger there, and this is sort of going to prove to be a bit of a problem for Andrew Webster. What does he do with Charles Nickel-Klukstar when he comes back? From all reports, he might be back this week. But can we start off with Dylan Edwards, his performance at the back for the Panthers? Phenomenal. And then I'll get your thoughts on Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
He's a wonderful player, Dylan Edwards, and he's built his game off effort, and he is always there. He is always in position, and as a fullback, you don't just have 5 metres in between you and the next defender and that. You've got like 30 metres. So your effort and your reactions need to be first class all the time. And before that, your fitness needs to be incredibly high. And you look at Dylan Edwards. I was actually talking to Phil Gould, and he said he's never seen anyone work as hard as Dylan Edwards or win as many fitness drills as Dylan Edwards. So you can see why he's got his game at the high level, because he's super fit. He understands the game. He's playing in a great system, and he's got a bit of quality about him as well. He set up a try off a little kick. He's got a great passing game. He is a wonderful player, and he's so consistent. The Panthers wouldn't swap him for any other number one in the game. I can nearly guarantee you that.
Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, I mean, he's back in rugby league where he belongs. Such an exciting player if we go back to his early days at the Roosters, and he's picked up where he left off. Bit of room to move, ball in the hand. He was fantastic for the Warriors at the back.
Yeah, why wouldn't he? He's a wonderful player. He's been our best player in our game. He's been our Dally M medalist. He's been a Golden Boot winner. He is an incredible player, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and he can play a number of positions. Look, I don't see this being a problem. I think Roger goes back to the centres. I think Andrew Webster has already come out and made some comments around that. Sometimes we have a short memory in our game, and we forget what Charles Nickel-Klukstar did for the Warriors at the end of last year to push them into the position they were in. They're a wonderful team, and Charles is an incredible player himself. So if I'm sitting there as the Warriors coach, I'm thinking they're both in the team. What's the best makeup of that? Now, they're both very selfless people. I know both of them, and they're very good people, and they will do whatever it takes to help the Warriors push for a premiership. And sitting here right now, I think Roger Tuivasa-Sheck in the centres and Charles Nickel-Klukstar. I think Andrew Webster will push with that for at least a couple of months. let that work and let Roger get some time in the centres. I think he could be a quality centre, and if Sean Johnson can help get him into the game, there's no reason why he can't be a player like Joey Manu who just floats around the field. And just because you're in the centres doesn't mean you're restricted. You can actually make it work.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of centres and wingers and all that sort of thing, Zac Lomax, this situation at the Dragons. Now, Zac is playing on the wing and he's playing some really good football at the moment. Brad Fittler said to me last night on Wide World of Sports on the radio here on 2GB, he said that, he's probably found the position that he should be playing, and that is the wing. That's in Freddie's opinion. The Dragons, though, this is all going to come to a head this week. Now, Zac Lomax, from all reports, his management's asked for a release 6 times. They've been denied by the Dragons. What are your thoughts on this whole situation, Bill, on Zac, where he's playing, and this release that he obviously wants from St George Illawarra?
Yeah, look, it's got to work both ways. That's the biggest thing with this release, because I remember when Ben Hunt asked for a release at the Dragons, everyone was, having a go at Ben Hunt and actually having a dig at his integrity and that sort of stuff. But then Zac Lomax wants to do it, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, we'll look at that. If we can get a player in return, for the club to have double standards like that, it's got to work for both parties." And look, I think Zac Lomax is a wonderful player. He obviously doesn't want to play on the wing. He thinks he's a centre, which I think he could be. He could be a world-class centre. He's got the attributes to do that. He certainly doesn't have the consistency, and he's got a lot of things in his game that bring him undone, penalties and errors and that sort of stuff. But he's playing great football at the moment on the wing, and he's learning a different position as well. So, look, there are a number of clubs that could do with some good centres. He would fit in the Melbourne Storm system really well. In that centre position, I just think there are a number of clubs that could benefit from having a Zac Lomax, and Zac Lomax could actually benefit from going to a different environment. But like the St George Illawarra Dragons have said, that they want something in return, and they have every right to want something in return because they've signed Zac Lomax on a long-term contract. You can't just break that contract. But at the same time, we see clubs push players out as well when they want to free up some salary cap space. So, look, that's the game at the moment. It's the way it is. I just think it's a little bit double standards when you're accepting to, or you're open to release one sort of player. I think Josh Kerr left the club and went to the Dolphins early.
Yep.
But you're not going to look into a Ben Hunt situation. So, what works for one doesn't work for the other at the moment.
It's got to come to a head, though, hasn't it? All this speculation about the future.
Well, there's been talk about transfer windows and all that sort of stuff, haven't there, Levy?
It's just going on and on and on. And speaking to Shane Flanagan over the weekend, he agrees that something's got to be done because it's taking the gloss away from what they're trying to do, and that's win football games. And they won a scrappy game against Manly over the weekend. Just on Manly, we won't sort of focus on their performance on the weekend, but I wanted to ask you about Daly Cherry-Evans, a bloke that you've had the privilege and pleasure of working with the last couple of years, the Queensland captain, Daly Cherry-Evans. He becomes the most capped Sea Eagle of all time this weekend. Wow. He's a 300 gamer, and what a remarkable competitor and what a remarkable career he's achieved in the game. Congratulations to DCE.
What a remarkable achievement that is. Like, you think about the Manly Sea Eagles, that's a club with a lot of history. And you think about the great players that have come through the Manly Sea Eagles. Steve Menzies is one that comes to mind. Cliffy Lyons. And to sit at the top of the tree at that club in terms of games played, that's a wonderful achievement for Daly. And He's been quite resilient through his career. He's played over 300 games. He hasn't always had it his own way. He got a lot of success early, winning that premiership in his first year. And was it 2011, I think it was? Yeah. He's a wonderful player, and he's still playing exceptionally well. He's a very professional guy. He loves the rugby league environment. He's been brought up in Mackay, in and around that sort of environment. And he's really settled in his off-field life. He's got a wonderful wife investor and 3 beautiful girls, and I think that's certainly helped him be settled on the field and enjoying his football.
He's a great talker too, and I haven't had a lot to do with him, Billy. I met him on the way home from Las Vegas in the Qantas Lounge of all places, and he's just a fantastic fella. Loves his footy, loves his family, and as he said to me, I said, all these milestones that were coming. He says, that's something I'll look back on later in life and in my career, but he's just focused on winning football games and doing his best that he can for Manly and Queensland and Australia. So good luck to you, Daly, on becoming the most capped player of all time. And let's finish up with South Sydney before we get to some listener questions and the Billy M Awards. We spent a fair chunk last week talking about the Rabbitohs. They secured their first win on Good Friday, and, it was a pressure-relieving win for all concerned, Bill.
It wasn't perfect, but they just had to win, didn't they? You talk about pressure relieving. They just had to take that pressure off themselves. It would have been an intense week leading into the Bulldogs game off the back of what the Roosters did to them. And, now they've got the win on the board. They've had the weekend off with their families. They would have been able to relax. I was talking to Latrell Mitchell before the game in the tunnel. He said he was heading back up to the farm. He'll reset, come back into training, and they'll all just be focused on backing up that effort. And it was effort that actually got them the victory. Like I said, it wasn't pretty. It was great to see Jack Whiten score a couple of tries. He's been really strong since he's returned in round 3. I even thought, his first game against the Roosters was quite impressive. He was very physical, and he's going to add a lot once they start working out how to get Jack Whiten into the game a bit more. He's going to be a real addition to the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So the tough part is to back it up week after week, and that's their challenge now.
Yes, this is the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Ram Trucks. Let's get into the Billy M Awards. I feel like we need some sort of grand opener or, some dramatic music underneath and acceptance speeches from everyone involved.
Bow ties, you reckon, mate?
No suits on a Monday? I don't think so. Most impressive team from round 4, the standout performers in the weekend just gone, Bill?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to say the Tigers. I just think that they've been the most impressive team in my eyes because of where they've come from and how they've turned it around. There's obviously a whole heap that the team is getting right and everyone's contributing to that. But there's some individuals within the team that have really, really stepped up and grabbed the actions that they want to be known for. I think Api Coruscant is, he's a wonderful player and a real leader for them, Api. There was a moment just before Aiden Caesar kicked the field goal that it was a slow play the ball. They were all set. Aiden wanted it. And Api actually turned to him. He said, no, not now. And he actually took the run himself, created the quick play the ball. And then Aiden Caesar got a little bit more time. So just those little moments are, they're going the Tigers' way because of experience and because of decisions made by their senior players. And then you've got young Lachlan, Galvin and that. But, the Tigers would have to be the team of the week for me.
Can you single out an individual, the most impressive player from round 4, Bill?
I can. And it's one of the veterans of our competition, and that's Adam Reynolds. I thought he was outstanding against the Cowboys. And, it wasn't through his try assists, although he did have one try assist in this part of the game. It was his kicking game. He had 22 kicks. He kicked for 650 metres, but it was the results of his kicks. The Cowboys made 16 errors in this game, and that'll be something that Todd Payten will be focusing on this week and talking about how much ball they turned over. Now, 13 errors came from the back 5. Now, the majority of those 13 errors came off Adam Reynolds' kicks. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was a display of kicking from a veteran kicker that just kept going back to what was working. Poor Scott Drinkwater dropped a few. Both wingers dropped a few bombs. And I just thought it was a great display of kicking. And it was finished off by a nice little delicate touch to Corey Oates, who I thought was a great positive to get back into the side. He was playing back row and scored off a little Adam Reynolds kick. So Adam Reynolds' performance was the Billy M performance of the week, in particular his kicking game.
So the Billy M ladder, joint leaders, James Tedesco and Adam Reynolds. After 4 rounds of the competition, we've only given them out the last 2 weeks, so we'll see who wins. We're going to have to get like a trophy or something, Bill,
Yeah, we'll get something.
Little statue of Billy, and we'll hand it over to the player who wins the Billy M Award for this year. On to the listener questions. This one from Darcy. Hey, Billy, how good was it seeing Mav Geyer make his debut last week? What was your debut like? What do you remember from it, and how did you feel in the lead up to your first game in the NRL?
Yeah, it was a great moment, Mav Guyer's debut, and you could see how much it meant to him, his family. They're Penrith people, the Guyers, aren't they? And I played a lot of football with Matt Geyer. They're just great rugby league people, good people in general, and that was a great moment to see Mav Geyer out there and all the shirts in the stands. So, look, my debut, I played at Shark Park in round 1, 2003. It was such a moment. Honestly, people ask me what my favourite moment in my career was, and it's really hard to sort of split grand finals and origins, and there's so many great moments that I was fortunate to be a part of. But I just keep coming back to my debut game. It was just something that, I'd worked so hard to achieve, and to actually run out onto Shark Park in round 1 after not even being in the top 25 leading into that preseason. That was a moment that I'll always remember, and probably the highlight of my career. And after 20 minutes, we were 22-0 down. I thought, oh, well, I've played one game. That'll do me. This will probably be my last. And we actually come back and won the game. Speaking of the Guyers, it was Matt Geyer who scored the winning try to put us in front with a minute to go. And that was an incredible feeling. Dallas Johnson debuted in that game, and also Craig Bellamy. It was his debut as a first-grade coach.
If memory serves me correct, you had a pretty good debut too, didn't you, Bill?
I scored a try. I scored our first try in the first half, just out of dummy half. Nothing happening. I didn't even think about my footy back then, and just took off and took the line on. I think Gal nearly ran me down, actually, but
Jeez, that's nothing.
Tommy Dearden style.
Do you remember was there a jersey presentation? Do you remember what the moment was like when the coach told you? Because that's one of the beauties about rugby league now. We see that behind the scenes look, and we saw Big MG presenting Mav with his jersey the other day, which was fantastic. Do you remember who presented you with your jersey?
No, not really. No? I just remember going into the trials, and like I said, I wasn't even in the full-time squad. So I'd earned through my efforts in the preseason to actually get a couple of trial games. And I played a couple of trial games, played in the centres and on the wing. And then Robbie Ross actually went down in the last trial, and he had a crook back. So he was out for a few weeks. And that was leading into the round 1 game. And then I obviously earned a contract. So I got a contract to stay down in the full-time squad. And then Craig said, mate, we're going to play you at fullback. It was just a casual conversation back then. There was no cameras or anything like that. And to be honest, I don't even think he knew that I'd never played fullback before that game.
Wow.
So lucky he didn't, because he may not have played me there. But that's a courageous play to throw a young kid that's never played that position in your first game as coach in a key position. Like I look back and I think that took a lot of courage for Craig to do that, and he was probably regretting it after 20 minutes when we were down 22-0. But I'm very thankful that he stuck with me and got an opportunity to play a few games with Robbie Ross, who was a great mentor for me coming through those early days, educated me up with that position, and helped me on my way.
I've never asked you this. How did you go with nerves, like leading into your very first game and throughout your career? Were you one of the players that battled nerves in the lead up to big games and say, a debut performance?
Yeah, I think nerves came when it meant something to me, when the result means something to you. And it's like I try not to think about the result, but that's where the nerves come. Oh, what if? When your mind starts wandering. And what settles your nerves was your preparation. I actually remember reading one of the big league magazines, because you used to have the big league magazine in the dressing sheds. Mm-hmm. And I was reading one of the big league magazines, and there was a sponsorship on the back, and it actually said beat them before they beat you. And I always remembered that. That was leading into my first game. And I thought, okay, well, I didn't actually take it out onto the game because they were beating us before we beat them. But it was a bit of a mindset for me. I was like, I'm going after this game before they're going after the game. So, nerves were a part of big games for me. They weren't necessarily a part of round 16 at Leichhardt Oval or something like that. But the big games where it was really important, the pressure was on the line, it just meant it meant something to me.
Good stuff. One more from Henry. Hi, Billy. Love the show. Do you think Tristan Saylor is too good of a player to be going to the Super League? Which NRL club do you think would benefit from having him off the back of his performance on the weekend from Henry?
Look, I don't think you can be too good to go to the Super League. Andrew Johns, Alan Langer, these sort of players have gone to the Super League. So if they can go, anyone can go. And I think Tristan Saylor would be a wonderful Super League player. We've seen players go over there that have been on the fringe of the NRL and go over there and be the best player in the competition. I think he could probably do that. I like the fact that he's staying in the NRL. He's got his opportunity at the moment with Reece Walsh out. He's doing a great job. He's a wonderful player and a well-rounded player as well. He knows the game and understands the game, and you can see that by his positional play, the way he injects himself, and he's got a bit of class on the end of it as well. Look, I just think the depth at the Broncos is going to suit them, and having Tristan Saylor there, I think he could push into a 14 role. I'd love to see him get an opportunity to play a little bit of dummy half when Billy Walters comes off. Mm-hmm. I know they got Tyson Smoothy there, but to have him and Corey Oates in a position where they can fill anywhere, because as we see at the moment, both of those guys played on the weekend. You need depth to continue your role in the game, and you don't know when you're going to get the injuries. They might come at the most crucial time, and if a guy like Tristan Saylor is there to play a key position, he just rolls straight into that.
Great stuff. We'll keep those questions coming through to Billy. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au. And we finish up today with a look ahead to round 5. Storm and Broncos Thursday night will be a beauty. We got the Bulldogs taking on the Roosters, the Rabbitohs and the Warriors, the Sea Eagles and the Panthers. And we've got Benji Marshall coming up against his old coach Wayne Bennett when the Tigers take on the Dolphins. So plenty of games to look forward to, live and free on 9 and on radio with the continuous call team. Bill?
Thursday night, the Storm and the Broncos, they're always great battles. Craig Bellamy started his coaching career, or didn't start, it started at Canberra, but spent a big chunk of his coaching career at the Brisbane Broncos. And there's always been a lot of Queenslanders play for the Melbourne Storm. So it's always been a great, healthy rivalry. I think that'll continue on Thursday night. Now, the Broncos probably come into this one in better form, obviously making the grand final last year, but that'll be one on Thursday night down at Amy Park. I'll be front and centre of that. I'll be on the sideline, so I'm looking forward to it.
You little beauty. Well, Billy, get stuck into those Easter eggs. Save a few for the weekend on television duties for Nine's Wide World of Sports, and we'll be back next week for another edition of the Billy Slater Podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Have a good week.
There he is. Billy loves his bananas. He also loves his Easter eggs, especially at this time of the year. And if you've seen the size of me, I obviously don't eat the bananas. Anyway, that's it for the Billy Slater Podcast. Thank you very much for your company. Enjoy your footy in round number 5.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus Podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Oak.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.